I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting proposed agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hall,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Recognition of Veteran Services, VSO Drive-By Drivers by Larry Ponder.
Thank you, Chair. Erica, if you'd please lead in our drivers. As far back as 2013, Sherburne County Veteran Services has provided transportation to the VA medical centers in Minneapolis and St. Cloud for veterans of Sherburne County. On May 12th, we transitioned the healthcare transportation program to the disabled American veterans. The transition expanded ride services to 5 days a week, added additional healthcare destinations, and saved taxpayer dollars. Today, we're here to honor the volunteer drivers who provided services for the last 12 years. The steadfast commitment of 6 core volunteer drivers, 4 of whom could make it here today, will be recognized. The first, Daniel Zebarth, who started back in 2017. Hold it with a handshake.
Thank you.
Taking our cues.
Stephen Freeberg, who started in 2020.
Perfect.
Bruce Brown, who started in 2022.
Let's do this right.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
And James Ike, who has been with us since 2013.
Wow. Thank you.
The commitment of these drivers was critical to the success of our program. Driving 299,097 total miles, and we have that because we track the miles on every vehicle. Thank you to our fleet manager. They ensured their fellow Sherburne County veterans were able to attend 3,916 vital VA healthcare appointments. Their dedication clearly personified the expression, veterans helping veterans, and bring great credit upon themselves, Veteran Services, and Sherburne County.
Can you stand right behind them?
Why don't we just get the whole board down? You guys want to come down so we can get the whole group?
You have to get in there too.
Larry doesn't.
You're charged.
No.
Back up.
Yeah. Larry, can you jump in there too?
I think it's perfect. The board.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We get one with Larry too? Larry, come on in.
Erica should really, Erica, you need to come in. She's the one that really needs to be.
Let's get close now. You guys go in.
Erica should be right here.
You're gonna have to go that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yep, that's you guys. Yeah. All right. You can cut me out later. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me switch phones.
Just on all the drivers. There's been 6 of them.
But the battery lasts. Perfect. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very
You
well.
want to say somewhere?
Privilege.
Come on up. I'd like to hear your thoughts. You guys want to go up and just say a few words, feel free if you want. I'd love to hear.
No, I'm good.
All right, come on up. Go ahead. I'm the loud veteran, Larry. Yeah, by all means.
Amazing what they can do with AI now, they can really modify those pictures. Say, but
Yeah, if you have any comments to say, just announce your name.
I'm Jim Ike.
You can stay on the side of the picture.
Your mic.
You can cut me off later.
Yes. Oh, I'm Jim Ike, and I've been driving for maybe 20 years out to VA. I drove out there and also Sherburne County here. It was a pleasure going out and picking up the vets and hearing all their stories, what they had to tell. Sometimes they were sad, but most of the time it was pretty good. They were happy. But it was a great time. When I first started driving at the VA, I picked up vets and took them to daycare on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. And I'd take a van, pick them up. Majority of them would be in wheelchairs, strap them in, and then take them to the VA. After a while, it got to where the VA had changed plans, and you had to be not a volunteer, but a employee of the VA to do that. But otherwise, yes, it was a great time. I had a lot of fun with the vets, and still do.
Thank you.
So once again, thank you. And I just want to point out too that we've transitioned to DAV, Disabled American Veterans, and many of our drivers are going to continue and volunteer with them. So their service is not going to end. It's still going to continue on. And we heard a great story this morning. So the closeness of the drivers or the responsibilities. One example was a veteran came out in slippers, and there was a polite reminder, no, you can't go to the hospital in slippers. You got to go and get your shoes on. So there was a lot of rapport and care that was developed because these are Sherburne County veterans transporting and working with Sherburne County veterans. So once again, thank you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Larry. Moving on to number 2, consider approval of proclamation declaring May 2025 as Foster Care Month in Sherburne County. Amanda. Or Sarah.
Morning, I'm actually gonna turn it over to Mitch Fennell. He is our licensing and intake supervisor, but his name wasn't on the civic clerk. So Mitch is going to introduce the proclamation and then also some of our award winners.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Boardman. Calling upon you today to review the proclamation for Foster Care Month here in Sherburne County. As many of you know, May is Foster Care Month, and we wanted to bring this to your attention as well. So, whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support is the very foundation of our communities. Whereas foster care provides children, youth, and adults with a safe, secure, and stable home, along with compassion and nurture from the foster family. Whereas child foster care providers open their homes and hearts, giving hope to children, excuse me, whose families are in crisis, playing a vital role helping children and families heal and reconnect, as well as launch children into successful adulthood. Whereas grandparents, aunts, uncles, and other close family members and relative caregivers also have an important role in providing normalcy, stability, and family connections to their kin who are not able to remain with their biological parents. Whereas adult foster care providers have opened their homes and hearts to adults who are unable to remain living on their own safely, playing a vital role in offering a safe and supportive community alternative other than institutionalized care. Whereas numerous individuals, as well as public and private organizations who work to support the Sherburne County foster care programs, are increasing public awareness. Our foster care system is only as good as those who are a part of it. Now, therefore, the county commissioners hereby declare proclamation of May 20th, 2025 as Foster Care Month. We have a couple award presenters today. So we have a Child Foster Care Award, Adult Foster Care Award, and Foster Child of the Year. So I will send this over first to Suzanne. She's going to read our summary for the Child Foster Care Award winner of the year. So
Should Kirby come up here?
if you want to, absolutely.
Kirby. I nominated Kirby and Jessica Sundit for the Child Foster Care Award. I was in need of an accessible placement for a child several months ago. This little girl was a medically frail child needing 24-hour awake support. I called the Sundits to see if they were interested, but at that time they were only taking adults into their home. Within a short period, I mean like 10 minutes, Jess called me back and said, change my mind, let's do it. So within a few weeks, my client moved into their home. They even built a bedroom for her using their own money to do this. So they have been absolutely wonderful in caring for this little girl. They immediately got all her medical appointments scheduled and made sure they knew exactly what her care needs were and implemented these after many years of minimal care that she had received. They enrolled her in school, and she's attending for the first time in her life regularly. She's 8, so I mean, there was a time where she wasn't going to school. She has her seizures under control for the first time ever because they just really made it a point to get to the neurologist and get her medications all straightened out that hadn't been done for years. I can't even begin to tell you how wonderful Jess and Kirby are. They are an answer to a prayer for 2 of my clients now, so I am just so thankful and ever thankful. They just saved this little girl's life last week.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, they had a helicopter come land at their house, but before the helicopter got there, they had taken care of the problem. So anyway, thank you, Kirby.
Absolutely.
Leslie and Kenzie from our new therapeutic sports unit will be presenting for our adult foster care provider of the year. They're not able to be here in attendance today, but I believe they might be viewing online. So.
Chair and members of the board, today we would like to take a moment to recognize someone whose quiet acts of service have made a profound impact on one of our community members and on all of us who've had the privilege to work alongside her.
Kenzie and I are honored to nominate Margie Peterson, one of our adult foster care providers, for special recognition. Margie and her husband Dan have long been known for their warm hearts and steady dedication, but a recent situation reminded us of just how extraordinary they truly are.
Margie was already planning to welcome a young man into their home the following week. She had prepared thoroughly, as she always does, but then an unexpected crisis arose, and this young man experienced a personal emergency and could no longer stay in his current living arrangement. It was a moment of great vulnerability for him and a moment that required rapid action from those around him.
Without hesitation, Margie and Dan stepped in. They rearranged their own schedules, changed their plans, and opened their home early, all to ensure that this young man had a safe, stable, and supportive place to land. They responded not only with flexibility, but with deep kindness, compassion, and understanding.
Since entering their home, this young man has flourished mentally, emotionally, and physically. He's learning life-changing skills like healthy communication and problem solving, and more than that, he's being treated with dignity and care. The Petersons don't just open their home, they make people feel at home.
This is just one example of how Margie and Dan are quietly and powerfully serving our community. Their actions are reflecting the very best of what we hope for in our provider network. responsive, person-centered, and compassionate care. Please join us in thanking Margie and Dan for their incredible service and dedication to the community of Sherburne County. Thank you.
For our Foster Child of the Year, he was nominated by Emma Doherty. She's not able to be with us today, but she was able to find Stacy Hessian, who's also familiar with this youth, to help bring his attention.
Good morning. Sherburne County Health and Human Services Child Welfare Department nominated A.B. Snee for the Child Foster Award this year. A.B. has worked through a great deal of adversity in his lifetime. He came to America from Liberia at the age of 6 and spent time living out east with relatives until he came to Minnesota in 2019 to live with family and friends. With his family oceans away, A.B. adapted well to life in the United States, and he makes friends easily, is a kind and charismatic person. A.B.'s done really well in school, participates in football, basketball, and choir. He's getting ready to graduate high school here in just a couple of weeks and will be graduating with almost a completed associate's degree. Not only has A.B. dealt with normal teen stuff, like they all do, he's also working through the process to obtain citizenship in the United States. This has been an extremely long road for him. However, through it all, he's kept a positive attitude and continues to work to be a productive member of the community. A.B. was accepted to Minnesota State University Mankato, where he'll begin studies in the fall to become a pilot with hopes of becoming a commercial pilot one day. A.B. has shown a commitment to his school, his community, and himself, and would be a wonderful role model representative of our agency and the foster care system as a whole.
I think this all ran together, the proclamation and the award winners. Is there a photo op we're supposed to do here?
Yeah, we should do one with our award winner, but maybe you want to pass the proclamation first?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Danielowski. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Halls. Any further discussion?
Yes, I would just like to say, without the people that are willing to step up and be a foster care provider for the youth and those that are in need of that service, I don't know where a lot of our young people and our foster care recipients would be. And so I would just want to give a very big heartfelt thank you for being willing to open up your home, make a difference in their lives. There are no words to say how much that means to a young person or a person who is in need of foster care services. So thank you so much for what you do.
And I'd just like to say thank you to all of the foster care families and all of the staff of Sherburne County that make that possible and make those connections happen. I think that's very important.
I would also like to say thank you for having hearts big enough and strong enough to do this work. Not everybody does.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
So if we could have commissioners come down and staff and our award winner in the front, that would be great. Keisha, do we have one of the winners online still?
Never did.
Okay. All right, then we'll do up front then.
You and the commissioners. I'm not that important. Oh, thought we were gonna. Yeah. Oh.
All right, you get to stand right in the center. Perfect.
X's and stuff here so we know where our miles are. I know, right? I know, right?
See, I told you, you get to come
Okay.
up here.
Are we not, see, no, we're not centered.
Oh, you guys come on over this side.
Normally we get X's.
Yeah, look at that. All right, you over here too. So. Oh, what a distinguished looking group there. So, Joni, I'll take a good picture and send it to you. All right, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
We love doing it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. You bet.
Next time we're dragging Jess in here too.
I know, she's actually driving Harmony to a speech appointment right now, so.
Okay, well, I'm coming to your house this afternoon for my monthly visit.
Oh, nice. Did we know that?
Well, Jess should know, it was a standing appointment, so I'll see you. See you, thanks, Kurt.
I know, we're 2 minutes ahead of you.
Moving on to open forum. Keisha, is there anyone signed up for open forum?
Yes, Board Chair, we have one person signed up. We have Brett Collier of Big Lake speaking about permits.
Good morning, Brett Collier, Big Lake. When I moved into this county back in 2001, I had to pull permits to build my home, and that was expected. And then this last Connections and Environmental Educator that I got in the mail from Sherburne County, it had an article in here, know before you build, you need a permit for that. And when I read that, I was disgusted. Because yeah, I need to pull a permit if I'm gonna build a new house, finish, do a whole bunch of rewiring and so forth. But you read down the list of things, and I'm assuming this is true because it was printed in here. If I want to put an in-ground or an above-ground pool over 24 inches deep, I need to pull a permit. So if I go to Menards and for $50 get an inflatable pool, I can't put that up in my yard without pulling a permit? We have to get a little real here. It also lists water heaters and softener installation. So if my water softener goes out, instead of taking 20 minutes to pull the tabs and slide a new one into the connection, I need to pull a permit to do that? This is what I consider government overreach. If this is actually true that I would have to do that. No, we should have some type of liberty as homeowners to do things to our homes without coming to the government to ask permission to do it, especially simple things. Back before 2000, I had property up in North Branch, and I could refinish the basement being the homeowner myself without pulling the permit for the drywall and the plumbing. I had to pull a permit for the electrical as would be expected. But it didn't even say anything about this, whether that's still something that's enforced here in Sherburne County. If you're a homeowner, you should have more latitude than if you hire some guy off the street to do something, to look at something, because you're taking care of your home. But I would hope that you folks, take a look at this. If this is actually, if what was printed in this article is actually true, it's quite a bit overreach and unnecessary, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Is there anyone else, Keisha?
There is nobody else signed up, Board Chair.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion, or is there anything been pulled, Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. There's nothing that's been asked to be pulled from consent, and staff doesn't have anything requesting to be tabled.
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second that?
Moved by Commissioner Hull, seconded by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to announcements. Bruce?
Well, since you're 2 minutes ahead of schedule, I will take it, just so you know. So just couple things real quick for updates, and then I will do a little bit of a calendar call and a legislative update as part of this as well. So just note, first of all, you may have noticed in the lobby we have a Memorial Week, or the week before Memorial Day, area set up, including the flags of the different services. I did see a certain commissioner trying to adjust the flag of one of them because he wanted to make sure it was real pretty. And just so you know, we do have Navy. We now have a new Navy guy, Drew Nelson. So we're having a little bit of rivalry inside. But I do encourage you to take a second and look and see the flags. Also, a note that we will have poppies available this Friday. They are voluntary donations, but when something new is, the American Legion's going to come in distribute poppies as well. So just really an indication, I think, of what you saw earlier in terms of honoring our veterans. Second of all is a kudos. Let's see, Amanda left already, but our second co-responder started this week. Really, really excited about that. As you know, the co-responder model has been a very, very impactful model that's reduced a lot of our law enforcement crisis calls because those calls that are more mental health related or human services related can be steered to a co-responder versus our law enforcement directly. And so our second co-responder is out and she's getting trained up right now and we're very excited about that. Third, I just want to note that we did have some public recognition the last couple of weeks, and one was in fact for a new website that we've created on family child care centers. And I want to really give kudos to Brian Fleming and to Dan for getting that up and running. It is an opportunity for people who need childcare to go onto a website, type in the ages of their children, number of children, and pops up those that have availability. It will be a self-regulating once we get it populated. We ask the child care centers that are involved to give us updates. We think we can manage that with current administrative staff, but it'll be a really nice clearinghouse for people looking for child care. If it takes off, we anticipate that we can add the corporate child care centers as well. But a really nice website if you haven't had a chance to look at that. And then related to that, and I think since this might be the first opportunity to educate our new commissioner, we do have a standing rule here, and that is that if you are in a photo in the newspaper by yourself, so group photos are exempt, you are required to bring donuts to the next county board meeting. So I just want to note that we now have 3 people signed up for donuts because Brian Fleming had a nice photo in the paper, and that's really important that we do that. Brad, you got a nice photo in the paper, so chocolate donuts are in order. And Dawn, congratulations, was also in the paper. And so we would expect that you guys will be well-rounded the next few meetings because we'll have extra donuts. Moving on to a couple other things. On calendar call under upcoming meetings, I just want to note, for those who are interested, June 11th is a reminder that is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's open house on the Monticello nuclear generating plant, and specifically they're going to go over the 2024 performance standards. That's 5 to 6 p.m. at the Monticello Community Center. And again, that's June 11th, just to make sure you're aware of that. Also, in terms of future workshops, I do want to note that we do plan to come back to you and talk a little bit more about elections. We do have a request from Commissioner Hulse to discuss voter registration rolls and how we manage those. And then we'll be finalizing our report from the 2024 election reporting error that we had. In addition, I do have a request for a future workshop to discuss parks and trails, comprehensive planning, and so we'll get that scheduled as well. And then one other note on your list for future workshops, under solar farms, we had decommissioning. I think it's also appropriate, we'll probably just talk about solar farms in general, because we have had a couple townships that are questioning solar farms. They haven't had them up in, for example, Santiago or Livonia just had their first one. And so we're getting some questions from townships that haven't had solar activity before. So we'll probably do that as part of that discussion as well for a future comp plan. Did I tickle something? Are you okay with that?
Oh, I just, can we get a calendar invite sent out for that open house?
Yeah, sure. On the Monticello one?
Yeah.
I can do that. Then transitioning to legislative activities. So the good news first, the bad news second. Just a couple of notes. I'll go federal and then state, short-term and state long-term. Legislatively, just a note at the federal level, we were not successful, at least so far, with congressionally directed spending requests for the 10 and 11 interchange or for the Two Inlets Park. We are being advanced for consideration for funding for jail renovations as part of congressionally directed spending. So that's a positive for us, and we'll continue to pursue that. And I think, in fact, we'll have some opportunities this week to actually talk with Congressman Emmer a little bit more about that request. At the state level, one other thing on the Fed, just so the board is fully informed, we are struggling a bit with Federal Highway Administration to release the funding and the agreement from last year's big amount for the Zimmerman overpass. What happened is the old federal agreement went through MnDOT, went through us, went back. At that time, the feds have changed their agreement. Now MnDOT is struggling to approve it because there are issues that 20 states have with the new agreement. And so we have an old agreement that the state and we would approve, and we have a new agreement that the feds and we would approve, but the state won't. And so we're trying to work out how that will be done. At this point, we're a little concerned we could risk the actual project and potentially a delay of a year, which would be several millions of dollars. And so Andrew Witter is really working very hard on that, and I'll keep the board informed as we move forward. We are using Congressman Emmer's office and Senator Klobuchar's office to try to figure out how to move forward with that project. At the state level, just a couple of things. The bonding bill is still up in the air. They have a target, but they don't have lists yet, as that's going to probably be a special session item, as you know. At this point, there's a chance that we may get a limited funding for the 10-11 design work, but our other request for parks funding probably will not be included. I would also note that, unfortunately, Big Lakes project might also be in a challenge there. What's happened is the state is putting quite a bit of funding in the Public Facilities Authority, or PFA, and encouraging cities that are doing water and wastewater projects to go to the PFA for loans. Rayanne knows about this, she's shaking her head already. So the PFA process is unique, and often it's low interest or no interest loans, but not grants. And so it does put a lot of pressure on our city partners. Now for the bad news. Nothing for the parks and the LCCMR or legacy funding. We thought there might be a chance, but it doesn't appear that we're going to get any funding for phase 1 or phase 2 in that process. We did see some limited successes in some policy bills. So in the veterans bills, Larry and his counterparts were successful in curbing some of the predatory advocacy that he talked to you about. But the compromise was that veterans who are not getting serviced in their own VSO can then call another VSO and request assistance. And that's probably, a reasonable compromise. Community corrections, Representative Novotny appears to have gotten us the 3-year averaging for the formula, which will help us. And also there's going to be a stay on some of the fee sunsets so that we can also look at potential fee revenue down the road. The budget is the up in the air question. We have no idea how it's going to come out. I will tell you that there's one thing that occurred which does not give me optimism, and that is the Northern Lights Express money was canceled for that future light rail project to Duluth. That money, however, the Senate was going to use to decrease the impacts on counties and cities. That money's now been diverted to pensions, and so I think even the Senate cuts to county program aid and to Health and Human Services are now going to be very commensurate with what the House and the governor were talking. So I think us getting by at a low level of impact is probably diminished right now, given that that funding opportunity has been taken by higher priorities at the state level. Finally, then, looking long-term, just a couple of notes for you. Just a reminder, there is a draft, a second draft of the child care licensing regulations out. If you're interested and you haven't reviewed them, I know Commissioner Danielewski, you have. They went from a whole 93 pages down to 86, so we got 7 pages removed. But if you do get a chance to review them, comment period is coming up, and we want to be aware of that. And then finally, I just want to spend 1 minute on North Star. Where things are at is the Metropolitan Council has indicated they're planning on replacing North Star with bus service, but only to Ramsey. They will not bring bus service to Elk River. They will not bring it to Big Lake. Our current bus service provider, which is out of St. Cloud, runs buses to Big Lake. They have neither the capacity nor the funding to run buses to Elk River or all the way to Ramsey. We will continue to work on some possibilities, but at this point, it appears that when North Star terminates service, it effectively will terminate the bus service from Big Lake to St. Cloud as well. I am in the process of drafting a letter to the governor because the Elk River portion of the Met Council's responsible authority has been missed in all this. And I don't know how strong you feel about bus service, but to me, if we're part of the Met Council's geographic area for certain activities, which includes Elk River, then at least they should be aware that they are dropping service to Elk River as well. But I think any chances of seeing bus service continue further west are slim and none. So the conversation continues. Any questions from that update?
I don't have any questions, just a comment. When you were talking about Big Lake more than likely not going to get a grant to help offset the cost of what they're looking at for that phase 2 of their wastewater plant. It is very frustrating because having a loan at a lower interest rate is all well and good, but it still falls to the community to pay for, but it's based on what the state requires of you to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to treat what waste there is before it goes into the river. And the river affects the whole state. And so I've always had the opinion that the state should be more helpful in these expansions that they require communities to do if they're going to continue to grow, because it does help the water bodies of the whole state. That's always been my viewpoint. Thank you for letting me say it.
Yeah, no, and at some point, the board may want to even consider perhaps post-session, maybe having a little bit of a workshop retreat with all of the municipalities to talk about some of these issues, because they do impact regional economic development. Just as an aside, we were out with Xcel Energy for their Becker quarterly meeting, and a similar conversation occurred, and that is some of the data center plants, when it comes to water utilization, the residual of that water then is put into the wastewater stream. And the city of Becker will face similar challenges, which is how to treat something that's either gone through nanofiltration or microfiltration or reverse osmosis. And so that resulting waste stream is in layman's terms brackish, but it really has a higher TDS and a higher anaphylmatic turbidity unit count, and that'll have to be treated as well. So any of those implications do come back on those municipalities that provide water and wastewater.
And these are not cheap projects. Big Lakes project alone, which will continue to grow with every delay or ability to pull the trigger on it, the last number was 50 million and growing. That's a lot to absorb for a community that's a population of roughly 12,000. So that's a huge, huge impact and a huge cost to homeowners and businesses as well.
And I just wanted to comment briefly on the budget situation. I had a conversation last week with AMC staff, and just to put it in context, the cost shift that the state is proposing, depending on which budget proposal you look at, is somewhere between $300 and $400 million shifted to the counties, that the counties are expected to pick up, with the legislature knowing full well that means tax increases, right? They're positioning it as a reduction in spending, and that's not what it is at all. They're just shifting the requirement to go to the counties. And I think what's going to happen, based on my conversations with AMC staff, a lot of the counties are kind of done, and it's either going to be a significant tax increase in given counties, or it's going to be counties saying, okay, well, we're just not going to do it, and we're going to see what happens. We're not going to meet the new requirements that the state is requiring for us. And some counties are going to go one way, and some counties are going to go another. But it is not going to be it's not going to be an easy transition. There is no easy solution when the state is simply just abdicating their responsibility and shifting it to the counties and professing it as a tax cut, when in fact it is not. It is just shifting it to property tax, which, as we've all talked about, is probably the least ethical tax that we have in the state.
Yeah, and on that note, Keisha, can you pull up in the file, the shared file, the attachment? I gave you guys all a hard copy of this, and I don't know if Joni or Jim are going to put it in. I suggested as an editorial or a letter to the editor, but this is the letter I handed out on behalf of you last Thursday, and to Commissioner Hals's point, and I won't belabor this too much since you have a copy. But as Keisha scrolls down, the proposed budget cuts you can see in HHS, as well as those other cost shifts on cannabis, CPA reductions, all of those together The best case scenario was the House at 800,000. The worst case scenario was the Senate at 3 million. And then when we look at last year's cost shifts, which are in statute, so these aren't even in question, was 3.225 million to the county already. That will be coming into effect next year. And those include, you can see the community corrections, which could get moderately better with the balance, but it's still a reduction. Fee reductions, the Child Protection Act, and then the paid family medical leave. All told, Sherburne County's impact, so Commissioner Hall's talked statewide, just our impact, you're talking between $4 and $6.3 million of shifts, which in terms of our levy would be equivalent to a 6.4% increase upwards to 10% increase. And that's before we take care of our own house. And that's what we're talking about with these shifts. These are mandated cost shifts with sometimes funding not only not coming, but even being reduced. If we took our county program aid, you can see under the worst case scenario, all of our county program aid, 96.2% would go just to cover those cost shifts. So it is a very significant impact. And again, we won't know till special session is over, but this is the impact of Sherburne, and you multiply this, as Commissioner Hall said, times 86 other counties. So, and again, we're trying to see what the best place is to publish this. I will put it on our website, but this is what we handed out to the legislators last Thursday.
And I would like to thank you for the letter that you put out. I thought the letter was good. It was, I would have been more pointed, but.
Really?
Shocker. But no, the letter was really well done. It was appropriate for handing out. If it does go out in the paper, I'm more than happy to have more pointed conversations.
Explanation marks.
Yeah.
So that's it for any other questions or comments, but appreciate the extra time to go over that.
We're good. Moving on to the regular agenda. Number 1, receive the 2025 MCIT board report. MCI staff.
So we are excited to have with you today our retiring executive director of MCIT. So as Garrett gets ready, he's going to pass out some handouts and go over to the podium. And Garrett, do you want a coffee or water?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. You may have gotten this handout electronically. I just wanted to make sure that for those of us who are old school, me included, that we have paper available too. I had a previous boss that said it's never a government meeting without paper. So if you relate to paper better, you've got that as well. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you today. Appreciate your giving us a little bit of time. From MCIT standpoint, we try to do this every couple of years just to give you an update on our work. And again, excited for that. Appreciate Bruce's well wishes on my retirement. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but just suffice it to say that it's time for family after 38 years in government service, and so I'm excited for that change. I grieve the loss of the opportunity to be involved with government work, with public service work, which I've done my entire career. But like I said, family is becoming a priority for me. So again, appreciate your time today. Minnesota County's Intergovernmental Trust. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. I think you can think of us as your insurer. We're actually a risk pool, and I think we like to think that we provide much more than insurance coverage. We were begun in 1979 as a way to respond to a very difficult workers' compensation insurance market for counties. A couple of dozen counties in Minnesota created us, and so we're a unique Minnesota entity created under Minnesota law. And over time, we've expanded the services that we provide to include liability, automobile, property casualty, in addition to the workers' comp coverage. So we're proud to do that for 81 counties in Minnesota, plus about 400 other county-affiliated organizations, soil and water conservation districts, ag societies, historical societies, lake districts, library districts, et cetera. So we're unique in Minnesota and appreciate the space that we're in and the work that we do. Again, think of us as your insurer. We're a public risk pool. We're a governmental entity. So there's several things I want to call out that make us different than insurance. I think make us a value add. And again, just for clarity's sake, we're a public entity, so we're a joint powers entity created under Minnesota law for Minnesota governmental entities. Our board members are your peers. They're county commissioners across the state. In fact, our previous chair, Felix Schmiesing, obviously was a former commissioner here. Appreciated his time as our chair of our board as well. We're not for profit, so we're a governmental entity and we're not returning profits to shareholders. You are our shareholders, and our board has seen fit for well over 30 years to return a dividend when we have excess resources available, and our actuary identifies that. Our board has been very good over 3 decades plus to return those excess resources to you, because we realize those are tax dollars, and we're not, again, in the business of maintaining excess revenues available. We have a partnership with our members. Our interests are aligned with yours. Doesn't mean we always agree with each other, but fundamentally there are services that we provide that insurers won't provide, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We don't have salespeople, so we're not paying commissions to salespeople. That's another cost that you're avoiding by being a member of MCIT. And finally, our board ensures that we're very fiscally sound and financially secure, and we continue that tradition over many, many years. And as I mentioned a minute ago, our work, we see our work really as a partnership, and I want to highlight some areas of that. You're making decisions every day that affect your liability, and we want to be a resource for you, a resource for your staff as you think about those programs and responses to the public. And so as you make decisions about new programs particularly, reach out to us and ask us questions to consider how our coverage, the coverage you purchase from us, how it applies to the decisions that you're making. We do plenty of contract reviews, and all contracts obviously have language in them that affects the liability that the county may have down the road. And so we've seen many, many contracts and can provide you with ideas on how to mitigate those risks. We're not your attorney. Your attorney's at the dais here, and so you should rely on her and that office for that legal advice, but we can provide some thoughts and ideas about how to avoid those liabilities that come into our space that we take responsibility for. We've been very involved in the last several years on cybersecurity. You know, what we think of as cyber hygiene, that's a really big issue, and I'll mention a little bit about that when I get further into my presentation, what we've seen. Safety efforts make the workplace safe and accident-free. And we have staff that are coming into your county and working with your staff, joining your safety committee to provide some advice and some ideas on how to improve that work. Sherburne County takes great advantage of our training resources. We provide low-cost, in some cases no-cost training to your staff, to commissioners, to anybody that's affiliated with a staff with your staff who is a member of MCIT. And in 2024, we had 40 registrations from Sherburne County for various training events along the way. You take advantage of our risk management services, which we think is terrific. Our loss control staff are on site and participating in your safety committee on several occasions in 2024. And we've provided more than 20 consultations to you and your staff with regard to risk management and loss control. So those are all examples of things where our interests, the interests of the pool, align with your interests, and we're very interested and excited to provide those additional services. And again, I guess if there's one takeaway from my presentation I can leave with you, it would be that our interests as a pool are really aligned with your interests. We're here to provide service to you, and we appreciate that opportunity to do that. I'm not going to read the handout to you, certainly. I'll I'll leave it to you to go through that in detail, but a few highlights that I'd like to touch on page 2, for example. I mentioned earlier that we work really hard to keep our program offerings financially sound. One of the strategies we have to do that, which is not unique to us, is that we purchase our own insurance called reinsurance. So for large losses, we purchase reinsurance in the open market where we're able to do that. Property is an example of that. In the case of workers' compensation, for example, Minnesota is a captive state as it relates to our legal requirement to do business with the Workers' Comp Reinsurance Association, which is a Minnesota-based nonprofit, and so we're required to purchase insurance from them, and so that's not a bid process. But where we can bid, we do that, and you'll see on the chart on the top half of page 2, for example, our property and liability reinsurance premiums paid have just continued to escalate over time. And those are obviously costs that we absorb as a way to maintain our financial soundness, so it's kind of a necessary evil to have that, but it provides a financial backstop when we do have large losses, and we tap into those resources to ensure that we can manage through particularly those large losses. Law enforcement liability is also another area, so you've seen property and liability in the chart. Law enforcement liability is another public sector liability that's been a driver for us, as has property losses over the past couple of years. I was at a meeting in Vermont last week, actually, with our reinsurer for liability coverage, and they're seeing public safety, law enforcement liability concern nationally. So it's a very, very large and growing component of all of the governmental liability that we're involved with, and so we spent some time strategizing there about what we can do as one state and one set of counties to contribute to improvements in that environment. But in the meantime, those costs do continue to take on a significant portion of our work. Your board does a great job, and I would say that whether I was working another 20 years or whether I was leaving, either way, your board has done a good job and continues to do a good job for MCIT and for our members to take steps to responsibly change our retention levels, that is, the levels that we keep, that we insure, and we shift the balance to reinsurance. And those steps that they've taken have saved the pool hundreds of thousands of dollars, just even in 2025, and so that's great work. But those increased retention levels then mean that we have to be sure that we're funded appropriately as well to maintain increasing losses that we're managing as well. And so again, coming back to the whole partnership theme here, that's where our partnership with you and our 480 members across the state is really critical. We're all pulling in the same direction together. On page, well, and I'll just highlight here too on the bottom of page 2, the total insured value. This is the total value of property that we provide coverage to at MCIT. All of this is Minnesota-based property. Most of it is county-based property. And you'll see increases in that valuation to $9.2 billion this past year. And so you can see the curve is kind of sloping up. And so, you know, coming out of the pandemic, we've certainly seen construction costs, replacement costs, labor costs, all of those costs are going up, and those things are being reflected in that replacement value, that total insured value. Page 3, we talk a little bit about rates. You know, when you think about the rates that we charge to our members, and we refer to those as contributions just to distinguish us from insurance and use of the terminology of a premium. But what we refer to as contributions are really coming to you as a bill that you would pay to us for the coverage we provide. And sort of like your property taxes to your constituents, those calculations, those bills are made up of a little bit of math that can be at times challenging to understand. One of that's a rate for us, it's a rate of exposure, and in some cases, total insured value of our property, for example, that's an exposure that we accept. So that becomes a baseline in those calculations. In the case of workers' comp, labor costs become a baseline for that. That would be our exposure level. So in order to calculate the contribution, you need to understand that exposure level. The second is the rate, and that's what's captured on the top of page 3, just what's happening to our rates over time. The blue bars are property and liability. That's the combined rate across, whether it's property, automobile, the liability, law enforcement liability, other public sector liabilities that we cover. That 11.2% increase last year was blended across all of those liabilities. Of course, you see some bars, the brown bars that go down, and the property and liability bars have a tendency to go a little higher. So understanding that rate and the exposure and the combination of those is part of how we make sure that calculation generates the revenues that we need to offset our costs. And I know you'll appreciate this too. You know, in the case of workers' compensation, of course, someone who's a young employee, maybe in their 20s, who's got a devastating injury, might require a payment from us for medical or for lost wages over a lifetime for something that just can't be recovered. And so our time horizon is also very long, particularly for workers' compensation. It might last a lifetime. And so as our actuary is looking at the liabilities that we're accepting on all of our members' behalf, he and his organization are helping us to think about what could be a 7 decades forward liability and ensuring that we've got our resources in place, as well as an investment strategy in place to take care of those things. So a lot to think about. But in the process of raising revenues, in the process of our investment activity, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're able to return dividends, and our board has done that for over 30 years. And you'll see on the upper right section of page 3 a discussion about dividends and the amount of dividend that was returned last year to Sherburne County. And again, we've been able to do that as a result of the actuary making a recommendation in terms of our retention of resources, such that we're still able to maintain our long-term liabilities and coverages. At the bottom of page 3 is a chart on cybersecurity and our cyber claims activity. This is obviously, I'm sure you're fully aware, well aware, this is an incredibly volatile area. And, you know, when we think about property, we think about automobile, we think about workers' compensation, we're paying claims in response to medical costs. We're paying claims in response to lost wages or what it might take to repair a vehicle and get it back on the road, or maybe it's building replacement as a result of a fire or a windstorm. Cybersecurity happens to be a criminal activity for the most part. And criminals are just out to get as much money as they possibly can, and so it's a little different type of coverage. We've heard from a number of members, and it's not surprising that they feel as though what MCIT provides is too limited, it's too low. In 2023, for example, you see the brown line on that chart talks about what we paid out in claims. There was one claim, our largest claim in the last 4 or 5 years, where we made a payment of about $100,000 to a Russian hacker, actually. So they are real, they are out there, and we see them in Minnesota. And their initial request from us for payment of their hack was over $1 million. But when they learned that our coverage was at the levels it is, they're looking for a payday, and so they became reasonable at the levels that our coverage provided. So I guess the point there with that is we think about wanting more coverage, and I think that's a natural human response to a risk that we just don't have a good sense about and that we can't control. But in the case of criminals, they're just out looking for money. And if the pot goes up on the insurance side and the coverage side, it's likely that the requests from bad guys in the area of cyber, at least, for example, they'll dig a little deeper as a result of that. So it's a very, very challenging area. Very volatile, as you can see from the chart there as well. Lastly, on page 4, just highlight a few things there. Thinking about claims as a whole, the table that's on the right upper section, this is an aggregate of our claims for the last 5 years from 2020 through 2024. And you can just scan down that list and see where the number of claims are with regard to just what we're seeing in terms of activity in those various departments. Again, most of these are county-related, as well as the amount paid per claim. And so you can get kind of a sense that, for example, in the bottom section, the property liability, automobiles, we cover 30,000 automobiles in Minnesota. And so, not surprisingly, auto happens to be an area that we see a lot of activity in. But the relative amount we pay per claim is relatively low. But if you look at law enforcement liability, again, critical area. It's important to all of your residents, and it's important to us as Minnesotans to have a strong law enforcement presence. But they're also dealing with sometimes dangerous, treacherous issues. And so the amount of claim there is also high on an average basis. But it gives you some relative sense over that 5-year period, the activities that we're involved with and the work that we're doing on your behalf. I'll end my comments just again by coming back on this lower section of page 4, talking about consultation. We're here to provide services. You know, I so appreciate the outreach that we've had from Bruce and your staff to provide us some feedback on our services over this last year. Those are sometimes hard conversations, but they're good conversations for us. It's good to have some insight relative to what your staff and what you are seeing and thinking about the work that we're doing. I'm certainly not going to be here to tell you that we're perfect, but I think there's learning opportunities. There's certainly opportunities that we've taken to heart with regard to that feedback and feedback that we've received from other members as well. And so we're responding to that. One of the things that we're doing, for example, is looking hard at what we can do to provide more data on our liabilities. I know you're very actively managing a self-insured retention, for example, in your program area, which not every county across the state has, but you're one of a few. And it puts you in a position where you'd like to be more actively involved in being aware of those claims on the workers' compensation side. And so we've strengthened our ability to have those interactive conversations with your staff, and I think you had one just at the end of April, and we'll continue to do those as well. We're also looking at our work comp portal. So we've got a confidential, password-protected portal where your staff can get into and check the status of claims along the way, and we're looking at expansion of the amount of data that we're pushing out through that portal to provide more information. And we're also considering the possibility of doing more with that on our property and casualty insurance side as well. So again, a couple of examples in areas where we've heard from you, you want more support, more data, more engagement, and we're changing the way we're thinking about that, and I think that's a good move. And I can tell you, even with my departure, that this is something our staff has taken to heart, and so this will continue certainly beyond my departure at the end of September. Training, I mentioned earlier, you know, we take pride not only in providing training, but also collaborating. Commissioner Hulse, for example, mentioned AMC. We are proud of the working relationship that we have with AMC. We know you're doing work with them, and we have some common interests. A year ago, for example, we co-sponsored with them a cybersecurity seminar in Waite Park just to provide information. We had great turnout. So that's an area of common interest. We're interested in it from a liability standpoint, and you're interested, and AMC is interested in it from a policy standpoint, from a governmental practice standpoint. So we're not out to duplicate anybody else's efforts, but where we can support that work, we'll do that as well. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to take some time and just talk about our work for you, and would be happy to respond to any questions or comments that you've got.
Questions? Comments?
Can you find more money to give back to us to help us offset our? Just kidding.
I'll take that comment back.
For good comments.
You know, one of the things I would say, and I think this again is the board, our board, hard at work on your behalf. You know, I really have to say, I have served in a local government capacity in another state as well as a state government capacity, and I'm not blowing smoke here. Your board, who again are your peers, they are engaged. And they are very actively involved, and it's really an impressive group. I will say that. One of the things that they've done over time, and this predates me, but they've begun working with the actuary to try to get to a point where we can price the services that we're providing at a level that's closer to what we think those obligations and liabilities were going to be. If you go back, I think back in the early 20-teens, 2010, 2011, back in that period, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, what you will see, and you can check this from your own dividend records, but what you would see, I think, is dividend payments that might be 5 to 6, maybe 7 times larger than the ones you received at that time. And I think what you read into that is maybe things are tightening up at MCIT. Maybe that's a signal that things aren't going as well as what I'm describing here. But I think this is really due to the board working with their actuary over time to sort of fine-tune the rate-making schedule, so we're not overcharging, so we're not, you know, you can appreciate, I'm sure, taking a fiscally conservative approach to things. In our work, sometimes that means building a big balance. You know, it's just setting money aside for a rainy day, and we have plenty of them, like today. Today, we're not having wind and lightning, thankfully. So for us, it's just a water issue. But overcharging in the first place also can lead to dividends coming back, which are larger than maybe they should be. And so the board has tried to squeeze down on their rate making in order to bring that, I think more appropriately under control. And so, but I will take that comment back. I know they're sensitive to that too.
I was just teasing, but thank you for the response.
I'm sorry.
And congratulations on your upcoming well-earned retirement.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Bruce?
Yeah, just a couple quick follow-on comments. So Rhiannon and I had the opportunity to raise with Garrett and the board last December the two issues that we had talked about, and just appreciate Garrett's comment as we kind of worked through those two. Just a reminder for the board. One was the timeliness of the information we needed for budgeting, which is somewhat driven by the bylaws of MCIT, but just even then, informal conversations will lead, so we're not surprised. If you recall, last year we got a double whammy of a huge increase in property casualty as well as in workers' comp. And so trying to get ahead of those makes a lot of sense, and we've been doing that. And then the other comment Garrett made, which is so true, there's a niche of counties, probably 6 or 12 at most, that have risk managers now. And we're not talking the super big counties like Hennepin and Ramsey. And that group really has a different level of information, capability, information needs, can do a better job with that. And we've asked MCIT to kind of ramp up their coordination with that group. And one of ours is Wright County and Stearns County. So we've got 3 in the neighborhood that fall into that group. And we've been very appreciative of those conversations. And so, but we still track, those were the 2 issues last year that we had raised to you. And then, like I said, Rhiannon and I got to stand in the gauntlet, but the board's been responsive at MCIT, and we appreciate that. So,
yeah, thank you for that. I might mention too, Bruce, just on that point, that we're intending to get a risk managers group started on a quarterly basis. Give that a try. See the level of interest, the level of productivity that can come as a result of that. So we'll launch that soon.
Anyone else? Well, I think, Garrett, you'll be sorely missed, but congratulations on your retirement.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you. I will do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 2, consider approval of draft update to the county park regulation ordinance number 270. Gina.
and just a FYI, there's no action requested today on the ordinance because we haven't gone through the formal notification process, public hearing, all that. So this is just an information update today. So.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Gina Hugo, Parks Director, and as Bruce mentioned, our RBA stated that we were seeking your approval today. This is actually just to make you aware of the proposed recommendations and seek your input before going through the formal public hearing process. So we appreciate the opportunity to present this morning the recommendations from the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee to the Park Regulations Ordinance. Since the last comprehensive review and update in 2018, we've really seen a major shift toward the use of electric devices, most prominently e-bikes, but also the standing personal assistive mobility devices, 1 or 2 non-tandem wheels. And without language in the current ordinance to address the potential concerns with these devices, staff worked with the county attorney's office on proposed language, which was then considered and discussed by the Park and Trail Advisory Committee over the course of 2 meetings. And the proposed draft language in your board packet is the product of those discussions. And I'll briefly highlight the recommendations for you, which are listed on the screen. 4 definitions were updated. Electric assisted bicycles and electric personal assistive mobility devices were both added as definitions as they're defined in Minnesota state statute. Trails were also defined to include a route or path along a series of paths or roads that's been marked for a particular recreation purpose as set forth in the Sherburne County Parks, Trails, and Open Space Plan. Lastly, the definition for vehicles was updated to mean any motorized, self-propelled, animal-drawn, or human-powered conveyance of persons or things, including but not limited to golf carts, motorized bicycles, motorized foot scooters, one-wheeled electric skateboards or hoverboards, motorized vehicles such as all-terrain vehicles or side-by-sides, or off-highway vehicles. Then updates to the regulations, most notably includes defining a speed limit of 20 miles per hour for trails, regardless of user type, whether you're running or biking. The committee came to this recommendation after quite a bit of discussion about potentially prohibiting certain classes of electric bicycles. And the difference between classes of electric bicycles is really hard to visually discern. And being that the primary concern with the difference in classes is capable speed, the committee felt that simply having a speed limit, regardless of whether you're on a bike or on a electric personal assistive device, was more clear, more straightforward, and more enforceable, especially considering that some of the standing devices can exceed 25 miles an hour. Prohibiting a certain class of e-bike wouldn't address that concern. So if adopted, this regulation would be reinforced and communicated with speed limit signs along the trail. And the Park and Trail Committee also recommends a provision that allows for cultural and ceremonial use of tobacco by Native Americans. The other recommended update is per the county attorney's office, and that's to distinguish the penalty for all violations listed in the ordinance as a misdemeanor except the use of cannabis and hemp, which is a petty misdemeanor, punishable according to the law with violators subject to a $50 fine. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I've got. I'm happy to take questions or input from the board at this time.
Questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Danielowski.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that, can you put that back, Keisha? That's okay. I appreciate the work that you did and the work of the Parks Committee. I like the idea of doing a speed limit as versus trying to ban and decipher what electric bicycle or whatever, because, for an example, a car can go faster on average than what a posted speed limit is. But you do recognize the posted speed limit, and hopefully you abide by the posted speed limit. So I appreciate their look at that. And I think it's becoming more and more, these electric assisted bicycles are becoming more and more popular. They do go quite fast. I have to go 25 miles an hour around our lake road, but I recognize that there's these mobile devices that are going way faster than what that speed limit is for a car. So I appreciate the work that they've done and recognize that these look like very good definition and policy updates.
Mr. Chair, I read through it and I forgot. One of my concerns was, so I anticipate potentially there being non-paved trails, for example, where snowmobiles could operate. Would the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit apply in those cases?
None of the trails within the Sherburne County Park System allow motorized vehicles.
So one thing I would want us to at least contemplate is I anticipate, based on some future work, that there may be opportunities for snowmobile trails, especially in the rural areas. I don't want to preclude that and then have to go back and rewrite the update. So we just might want to contemplate that a little bit. But the other piece is for sure, I really like the speed limit on the defined trails, on the paved trails. And the reason is that Pinellas County, which I've associated with, they just recently passed an ordinance and they banned e-bikes on all their trail system. The problem with that is where do those bikes now go? Well, now they're on the street. So now they're competing with vehicles. And so it's created a much more hazardous situation than just imposing a speed limit. So, and I realize there's enforcement issues on how we would make that work on the trail system, but I really like the solution that you've come up with, and I think it's an appropriate solution.
Thank you.
Just a little footnote, when we come back for the workshop, I think we'll probably do a little definitional exercise, because snowmobile trails we allow, but those are not our trails. So we'll have to clarify that. And then I think, and Greg, you're going to have to help me out here, I think some of those are probably governed by statute, not by local ordinance in terms of what's allowed on a snowmobile trails. But I think your conversation about levels of trails makes sense too. I mean, because we theoretically could do some really nice DG trails where it's more appropriate than a paved trail. And so, yeah, when we do the workshop, we'll kind of go through that.
Yeah, and all I'm suggesting is let's write it with language so it wouldn't preclude that if it's something that we do in the future, so that we don't have to rewrite it again. That's all my thinking there is.
Yeah, I don't think we maintain any what I'll call snowmobile trails or year-round ATV trails, but there are places that do. So we'll pull together for the workshop and kind of go through that. So that's a good point.
Anyone else? Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Number 3, consider approval of resolution 052025-AD 3206 regarding no parking for County Road 75 from north of 236th Avenue to 238th Avenue in Orac Township. Andrew Witter.
And I'll jump in here first and then maybe ask Greg to jump in too. We did, as the board directed, we had a good meeting with the DNR as well as Public Works and the Sheriff's Office, and then the board had designated Greg to participate. I think we came up with a good clarifying area. What I'll tell you is we kind of approach it as a short-term, long-term. So short-term meaning this season, and then there might be movement long-term. And so really what we're focusing on is what we can do for the least cost this year that addresses the issues versus what might happen should the DNR have success in a long-term solution. So looks like Commissioner Danielski wants to jump in though.
Mr. Chair, can I just do just a little side note before we delve into this and the next 2 items? I just wanted to recognize that this week is National Public Works Week, and it runs from May 18th through the 24th. And I just wanted to recognize our Public Works team for all that they do on our behalf in keeping our roads safe by design as we continue to grow and our infrastructure needs. And so thank you so much to our Public Works team and recognizing the National Public Works Week. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that time. And I don't know if Brian or Brad, do you want to put your little cone out front? We'll recognize this.
There we go.
There we go.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Mr. Schumacher.
We always recognize the cones may deter our ability to get from point A to point B, but it is the true investment
of the taxpayers' dollars at work. And every time we see a cone like this, it ends up making it easier on us in the long run. And so I think the Public Works staff for putting this cone together and making it beautiful. I also, when I came back out with these extra reflectors on here, there was some other superintendent of the Elk River School District that said his daughter had just got her driver's license, and I said we would put more of these on in Zimmerman for her, just to help with the process as we undertake the construction on County Road 4 and County Road 45.
That's probably the first traffic cone at the day as.
Yeah. I had no idea we were starting show and tell.
This is.
Gotta bring props.
Well, I'm just wondering where Andrew was with his proclamation. So I don't know. You're missing the ball. Amanda's always got a proclamation. You should figure this out.
Yeah, we did. Thank you.
Next year, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, County Board members. I appreciate the acknowledgement of that. We're a pretty humble group, and knowing that I'm on mic and on camera, we like to get stuff done, and that's what we do. So.
Yep.
And you do a good job of it.
Acknowledgement.
Hey, Greg, did you want to?
Everybody done?
Did you want to start this off, or you want to have Andrew kind of summarize where
Okay.
we came out?
So who's going for?
He can start.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, County Board members. So as Bruce mentioned, we had the resolution last meeting that was tabled, and there was a desire to refine kind of what that looked like and what that wanted to be in and around the lake landing there on County Road 75. We did convene a meeting with the sheriff, staff members, the DNR, Commissioner Felber, myself, and Administrator Messelt, and the team came up with the resolution as attached, along with the exhibit as shown. It's a reduced area of no parking, and then allowing, there's an existing northbound right turn lane that is no longer needed because the access is cut off due to private property. So we'll utilize that for some parking, some on-street parking in the interim. So it was an agreeable solution to everybody within the committee, and looking for a motion to accept that no parking resolution in and around that area. I would open it up for any questions.
Can we bring up the graphic and just go over it? I want to make. I had a little trouble translating it from the text to the graphic.
Yeah, and I would note that Greg was out there too. It'll be fine-tuned in field, and you found some survey stakes, which I don't know, Andrew, if you'd already had a surveyor out there or not, but so yeah, go ahead and you guys fine-tune it for them.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, County Board members, if I may, so you can see the two red lines on the graphic there. The area in between those two red lines is where there was a request for no parking on both sides of the road. As we've talked about before, the no parking would be specifically to the road pavement and road surface. Outside of those areas, it would be parking as usual, as necessary. The area highlighted in yellow is that northbound right turn lane that we will specifically designate as on-street parking, because just north of that yellow area and just north of that line, adjacent to the yellow area, you can see a small sliver of property there. That's private property. So those access points, the south access point specifically, it cannot be used because it enters private property and does not enter directly into the DNR boat access. So the DNR has reconfigured the access so that it functions to the best of its ability, which I would say is still pretty limited, so that they no longer use that southerly access and are able to use the other two access points in the interim until resolution, and a long-term resolution is figured out between the DNR and the private property owner.
And the one thing I should add, Keisha, can you zoom that map up again to the lower red line? We agreed our county costs would be for the signs, but there would also be, there's that sliver just north of the lower red line on the shore side. There is enough room for a vehicle to come in there parallel to the road. And we'll be putting a sign up there that'll say boat staging area. Is that what we came up with, Greg? Was it boat staging or
The-
boat prep area?
The staging area is in the middle.
In the middle, okay. So we'll have one additional sign besides no parking.
Basically, that's where the little point of the private property sort of converges to the point where you can't see it here.
Yeah,
You know, where it just becomes like one solid line. I mean, it's wider. I mean, that's still
right.
10, 12 feet across right there where it looks like it comes in. Right about there is where the, what used to be the middle driveway for the landing is. Now the landing is just north of that. So that's where people could come in there, and there's enough space in the easement beside the private property that you could drive a boat and a trailer in there. There's a ditch that's got some big ruts. As long as people don't go down in that, they'll be okay. So I'd like to get that filled in if we could. And then the space past it from the red line up to that one, I thought we were gonna try to preserve, because we've got about 20 feet of easement or more there. I thought we were gonna try to preserve at least a little bit of parking in that little section. That's what I thought we were gonna do.
So there'll be an additional sign, not just no parking. We're gonna make one other sign to kind of assist the DNR. But other than that, we kind of limited the county's financial activity right now.
Those survey markers are ours, right? Or-
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Felber, we did have our surveyors go out there and stake the edge of the right-of-way all the way along that property area, so we can close off the driveway access points at the property line versus at the edge of the roadway.
Those are super helpful.
And then the last comment I'd make is we would try to get the signs up before Memorial Day weekend, so, yeah.
And we had talked about moving the barrels over to that.
Correct.
To that border so that people have a better idea. And then we'll just work on trying to fix the rest of it.
We may not be able to prohibit private activity. There's still some jostling of signs and posts, but that's really between DNR and the private property owner. Our biggest objective is to protect the integrity of the roadway and the traveling public for safety. And, you know, I think this is a good starting point.
So Commissioner Felber, so with these additions and clarifications, does this generally meet
Yeah.
what you were looking for?
Yeah, because what I was looking for, thinking we should do anyhow, would have been to at least take the parking out in the curves, which would be that north red line down, you know? Because that's where it gets kind of dangerous. That should be more or less permanent, and then the rest of this we can figure out. It's just what's left of the original access, a lot of that is just our easement. And then that little narrow strip next to the lake that the DNR owns, so.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
I think this is going to obviously be a work in progress, and hopefully the DNR will continue to figure out how to come to some agreement with that property owner to be able to support a reasonable access to the lake, which I don't see this at the moment meeting that. But that's for their conversation to continue, hopefully. And like I said, we'll adjust. I do have some concerns that I shared with Administrator Messel. Keisha, can you kind of scroll up and show me more of the south? Nope, other way. Thank you. Right there. Okay.
That southern curve.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about this southern curve here, just as for the visibility, but like I said, I think it's going to be a work in progress, and we'll adjust as we have to.
Yeah, and we kind of focused on the northern because both Commissioner Felber and the sheriff's staff, Cole in particular, indicated a lot of the traffic is coming from southbound, so there wasn't as quite a concern. You know, if you come northbound, you're actually now having to make basically a J-turn or almost a U-turn to get your boat in there. It's pretty, it's a challenging site. The good news is, even with the couple weekends we've had, our enforcement staff have not seen a lot of conflicts. We're really mitigating risk at this point. And the other thing is in the past, the folks who are using the shoulders where it's allowed to park are honoring the white lines for the driving lanes, with the exception of when they're backing a boat in or something. So I think reasonableness will prevail, you know, but the numbers are telling. The DNR indicated that they estimate they went from 20 sites parking on site to 5. So that means there's a shift of 15 parking spots now that's going to be including, you know, in the ditches and stuff. So our reaction is reasonable and it's appropriate.
Mr. Chairman.
Schumacher.
Well, maybe you said it and I didn't hear. What was the plan for the off-street parking when it pushes back up into the development and near the cul-de-sac?
There are no limitations on off-street parking in the cul-de-sac that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Since it's not a county road, we wouldn't have jurisdiction there.
The township had a special meeting about that, and they've opted to not do anything right now to see how this progresses. Their original concern was that if we ban parking for a wider space of it, you know, then people would start parking in the neighborhoods. I think with this, the amount of parking we have available right now, it's where people have traditionally parked, using the on the really busy weekends. So I don't think we're going to have significant issues in the neighborhood at this point in time.
And I think as everybody said, I think this is a good interim solution. We just need to keep an eye on it as, you know, as people utilize it, especially coming up on the Memorial Day weekend. We may learn something that we want to modify it, you know, slightly. So, you know, we just need to be flexible with it. But I think this is a good, you know, good compromise.
Yeah.
We had said we were going to keep our caution signs out there to let people know that, you know, I mean, for the people who don't live in the area so that they don't come through there zipping.
So do we need a motion on this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do.
So I'd make a motion to approve.
Roll call.
I'll second.
And it's in a roll call if you scroll back up. Mr. Chairman. Or
Mr. Chair, if I may. Just a point of clarification, maybe for the county attorney or Administrator Messel. We did have the resolution that was tabled at the last meeting. Is there any mechanism we need to do to handle that tabled item?
I think you could just change the resolution to say motion to approve and replace the prior draft if you want, but I don't see a requirement to you.
No.
Okay, thank you.
And then as far as roll call, that's just a reporting requirement. We're not requiring a roll call unless you guys want one.
no.
Yeah, there's just one caveat. I'm from District 4, not 75. I don't know where that came into it.
I don't know, Keisha, you're in
there,
trouble.
There was something we were supposed to talk about.
My district's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will modify my motion to remove and replace.
We have a motion to remove and replace.
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Danielowski. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Consider approval of resolution number 052025 AD 3210 to acquire property for County State Aid Highway 4 at County State Aid Highway 11 intersection improvement project.
And if you're okay, I think Andrew can talk about both item 4 and 5 and discuss the differences, but they're similar. So are you okay just covering both in your comments?
Absolutely, I was planning to do so anyway, so thank you, Mr. Chair, County Board members. The next two items are two roundabout projects that we have received $1.4 million in federal safety funds for each project individually. We've identified another $300,000 in local option sales tax as our local match for these two projects. Our anticipated timeline right now is to construct during the 2026 construction season. The first item specifically is for CASA 11 and CASA 4 intersection. This is a rural roundabout. We've had a lot of crashes, severe crashes, fatalities along County Road 11, so this was an intersection of importance that we needed some intersection control at. Obviously, taking a look at it and trying to figure out the safest mechanism possible. We've reviewed signals and roundabouts for this intersection. From a number of perspectives, roundabout is the intersection control that makes sense here for this rural roundabout. It's interesting to think about roundabouts if you go back at a higher level. They call them big nodes and skinny roads. And the reason they call them that is because as you're approaching the intersections, you don't have to develop these 500-foot left turn lanes, right turn lanes, things like that. So you see a little more impact specifically at the intersection itself, but as soon as you get away from that roundabout specifically, the impacts are a lot less because you don't have to develop all of those turn lanes and make that wider road coming into it. So again, getting back to this first item at CASA 11 and CASA 4, we do have half dozen parcels or so that we will require primarily temporary easements. Again, specifically on the corners, we will need some PE to provide that infrastructure and that ability to build that infrastructure. I will note I did have a question from Commissioner Felber that we are showing sidewalks here. That is a requirement of the state right now, but the Minnesota County Engineers Association, we're working diligently with the state of Minnesota to effectively say, why are we required to put sidewalks on a rural roundabout that has no pet or bike facilities in and around that area? We've been making some progress, but there hasn't been any final decision made on that. So I'm hopeful by the time we get to final design and start working through that those pink sidewalks that you see on the layouts will ultimately disappear on this project. So with that, I will open it to any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Danielowski.
Thank you. I appreciate the roundabout approach to this intersection. We've had a lot of, like Andrew referred to, a lot of issues at that intersection, some severe T-bones and such. So I think this approach is a good way to do it. Being as we've tried how bigger can we make that stop sign? How much blinking lights can we put on it? This way people just naturally come to a roundabout. They will reduce their speed to make the roundabout. And so I like this idea. I think it's going to be successful in minimizing, if not eliminating, most of these critical crashes.
Yeah, it's a great place for a roundabout. I go through the intersection all the time, and it's always been terrifying. And it's gotten worse over the years. So I'm glad to see this, and there's not any significant local opposition to it. There's some concern about where the vehicles will be rerouting themselves to during construction, but that's nothing we can really do anything about until the construction actually starts. And they, township may have to put some signage out or whatever, but this is a really good roundabout, and it'll be great if we don't have to build the sidewalks because those are,
Yeah.
it's going to be going too fast to sell lemonade there, so we don't really need them.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, another point of clarification. This is not a resolution for eminent domain. This is a resolution to acquire property at this point. So we're working on getting the appraisals done and negotiating with property owners.
Okay. I will make a motion then to approve the resolution number 052025-AD-3210 to acquire property for the County State Aid Highway 4 at County State Aid Highway 11 intersection improvement project in Becker Township.
I'll second that, because I don't have to say all that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski, a second by Commissioner Felber. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Number 5.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 052025-AD3211 to acquire property at County State Aid Highway 4 and County Road 46, since we've already spoke about it.
Okay.
Did it twice.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Schumacher, second by Commissioner Danielowski. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner
Witter. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I will put one little caveat in there. Hopefully it's not an issue. So in this roundabout, we do show the sidewalks, and we do feel like the sidewalks should remain on this one. It's hard to see on the graphic, but you can see the baseball field there in the southwest quadrant. Directly east of there, between the baseball fields and the road, there is an asphalt trail on the school property that we will be connecting this sidewalk and crossing facilities to.
Yeah, it's West. Yeah, it's Westwood Elementary, plus the community center that we all know. Yeah.
You definitely want trails
That-
and sidewalks there.
Yeah, Greg, that's what you and I talked about. I didn't know it was already there, the trail that the school wanted, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, receive and review, accept the auditor treasurer's monthly report for April 2025.
Mr. Chair, just one question before Andrew leaves. Is the website still up for community input for County Road 1?
Yes.
Okay,
It'll be up a little bit longer, so we're doing some more social media work on that and able to get more feedback on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So as Brenda gets ready to speak, just a little note. This is her first time appearing in front of you in her new position. I can't even say recently promoted, but somewhat recently promoted in the new position in the auditor treasurer's office. And she left, she was originally managing payroll for us, but now she's one of the supervisors and division heads in auditor treasurers. So if your paycheck is messed up, you can't blame her anymore.
Not anymore.
But she did train folks to do payroll behind her. So congratulations, and this is your first time presenting.
Thank you.
So.
First time, yes. Good morning, everyone.
Well, that means no pressure whatsoever
Right,
at all. So feel free to relax.
Yeah, exactly. We're
But-
good.
The pitchforks.
Well, good morning. Yes, I'm Brenda Davis, Finance Officer. I'm here for Lorraine today. Enclosed, you will see the April trial balance that's prepared by Accounting Manager Sherlyn Kapsner. It includes ARPA funds of $1,865,382 and the Recorder's Compliance Fund of $245,322. There's also a 3-page investment report that I've prepared. Investment earnings are currently above budget by $349,860.77 at the end of April. Interest earnings year-to-date total $1,149,860.77 compared to $952,010.41 last year. So we are ahead of last year by $197,850.36. There is a couple of other reports. There's one that summarizes what I had just spoke about with the interest earnings, and there's also a chart of a chart that shows where each of our types of investments we have, average interest rate, and then we also have the distribution by financial institution, which shows where every dollar that we have here at the county resides. We also have the budget to actual report, and on page 6, it's reported by function, and this is a modified accrual report. Property tax collections, first half of property taxes were due last Thursday on the 15th. They're tracking on pace for what we are expecting for this year. We're getting ready for settlement, and we have settlement payout dates scheduled for May 27th is the first 50% estimate to schools and Department of Revenue for period 1. Then on June 5th, we have the second 50% estimate to schools and Department of Revenue for period 1. June 13th, we will get 70% estimate to cities and townships for period 1. And then finally on July 7th, the balance of period 1 settlement payments will be made and the journal entry for county share of taxes collected. Our office, as well as county staff, is currently working on the 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. We are working on that with Clifton Allen Larson, our audit team, and we plan to have the ACFR ready for submission to the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Program before the end of June of 2025. And we will be requesting to submit the 2024 ACFR to the GFOA Certificate Program once it is ready, and you will see an RBA in the consent agenda for submission once we have that available. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask or reach out to us afterwards.
Anyone questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. And probably for Bruce, especially since it got brought up, but the Sherburne County dividend for $70,438, which is not going to offset the state's cost shift. But where does that money get redeposited back into? valid question that got brought up today.
Yeah, so first of all, just so you know, we budget for it every year. We make an assumption. But so when it comes in, it's put into the general fund of the county. But like this year, what did we budget, Dan? 125, and it was 70, so. Now, if Felix were here, just so you know, I mean, his advocacy would be, don't budget for it, don't assume a dividend, but reasonably over many years, we have, I mean, on average, it was probably 250, so we budgeted 125. But more, okay. You know, so where it ends up, just so you understand, is basically we create on the operating side, so we're not talking reserves, but on the operating side, we create what's called a year-end savings account or YES account, and that funds unfunded capital projects at the end of the year, so things that we'd like to do but haven't budgeted for, and that's called the year-end savings account. So typically, any overage from what we budgeted would end up in there. Again, we get 70, we budget 125, we're 50,000 short, so.
Right.
Okay. Otherwise, before Felix, it used to go into the commissioner's Miami Vice travel account, so.
I'm sure
He's
Felix
kidding.
would probably put it there. That's where he wanted it. We need a motion to accept the auditor treasurer's report.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Schumacher motions.
I'll second. Whoop.
Or she can. Somebody can.
Commissioner Felber seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Perfect.
Thank you.
See, we're harmless.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Thank you very much.
Relatively.
Consider approval of a 3-year lease agreement with Sherburne County Agricultural Society. Dan?
And
Russell Bruce won, so he's gonna take it.
Bruce gets it? Okay.
well, actually, I think Commissioner Hulse, do you want to give your perspective first? So.
Yeah, sure. So we've been working with the Ag Society and the Fair Board on renewing the lease. Normally, we would do a long-term lease. This year, what we've opted to do is a shorter-term lease. We have some specific deliverables that we want to see out of the Fair Board. You know, primarily a strategic plan is the biggest piece of it. But it also gives us an opportunity to take 3 years and answer some other questions around Elk River and a couple other things. So we think it's an agreeable lease at this point. Like I said, 3 years in duration. They have some deliverables that they're expected to report out to us. And then upon completion of that, we would look at a longer-term lease.
And just to add, we did add things that were deficient in the lease. So we upgraded our legal terms and provisions, insurance. The one thing I would note is we did have a risk committee meeting last week, and the sub-leases, so specifically like the food vendors, we allowed them to get the statutory minimums on leases. On insurance. They don't have to get what we require normally, but the umbrella organization does. And that umbrella organization also covers the demolition derby, and what was the other one they covered, Dan?
Rides has separate
Oh,
coverage.
the rides have a separate contract. So the risk assessment committee is your staff committee that will recommend lower insurance approvals. And we did that only for the subleases. So
Yeah.
we're comfortable with it.
Yeah, and just to be clear, those are $1 million and $2 million policies, and it's primarily for things like food vendors and those sort of things. So they're entirely reasonable. It's the statutory minimum, but it's also sort of a standard
business practice.
Yeah, it's a standard policy that those folks are able to get. So I think the policy requirements are entirely reasonable.
Yeah, and the performance measurements we added were things that the History Center already does, and so we're really bringing the Ag Society up to where the History Center is. Attendance, basic budget, revenue generation, expenditures, those type of things, just so that we have better metrics going forward. And overall, I mean, I think the Ag Society is figuring out that a long-term strategic plan is needed for that facility, specifically on the capital. I mean, some of those facilities are getting awfully tired, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Danielowski.
I appreciate the work that's being done and I like what is in front of me in regards to creating information for us in the or for the future of the fairgrounds and the fair. I was just curious, I know that there's a lot of volunteer members that are on the fair board that do a lot of work at the site. Who covers them in case there's an injury? I'm assuming, do they have to carry their own insurance as
Yep.
well?
Yeah, they have their own insurance. They do report the volunteer hours as part of reporting. And there is that calculation where there's a value of volunteer hours, but they're required to insure them.
Yep. And on a yearly basis, they do share what their budget and what their revenue and expense sheet is?
Every 3 years, they provide an audit.
Yeah, but to the extent that they have a written budget, we see it.
Okay.
It's a hands-on organization, let's just put it that way. So, they put on a good fair, but to really think above and beyond that is a stretch for them, but they're willing to stretch, so.
Yeah.
And I would just note for Commissioner Schumacher too, so the revenues from this lease, we're gonna put into the traffic cone replacement program, since one of them hasn't been returned, so.
Two.
Somebody, I know it's in there for a reason, but can one of you that drafted up the lease, the terms of this lease may be extended up to additional 25 years through 2053. Can someone explain that part? I mean, the original lease goes from 25 to 28, I get that.
Yeah,
But
so.
why is it 53?
So the carrot and stick approach was that our stick carrot approach was, we were not comfortable. They wanted a 50-year lease so that they could do what they considered to be their long-range planning. Their claim is they can't go out and fundraise millions of dollars for building improvements if they're gonna get kicked out in 5 years. So they requested a 50-year lease. We said, if you come up with a strategic plan and an operational plan that we can track and implement, we're willing to consider a stable lease so you can do your fundraising, do your capital investment, all of those things. There still will be requirements and thresholds, and there will obviously be a termination clause. But the idea was, if you step up to the plate, come up with something that makes sense from a long-range vision, and you have means to do it, fundraising, grant writing, whatever, then we would be willing to consider as a county to give them a longer stability. Is that?
They originally wanted 50 years, and we gave them 25.
Yeah, exactly. And I correct me if I'm wrong on the history on this, but originally the land was owned by the Ag Society, and then it was sold to the county with the intent of leasing back to them for $1 a year. So that's why that's why it is what it is. So it was originally owned by the property itself was originally owned by the Ag Society.
All right.
Yeah, and I think past leases have been, what, Dan, 5 or 10 years? 10. And not that it is an excuse, but the argument we don't have a strategic plan because we don't have a long-term future can become a crutch. And so we just wanted to remove that. And again, we're doing this collaboratively. This is not a top-down. This is, everybody's in agreement, so.
Okay. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the county fairgrounds lease in a modified extension of the agreement that has been in place with the Ag. Oh, that's it. You gotta go down, that's the wrong one. There we go, thank you. Approve a lease agreement with the Sherburne County Agricultural Society for lease space on the Sherburne County Fairgrounds effective June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2028, as defined within the lease agreement.
And I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Danielowski and a second by Commissioner Halls. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see the future lease look more like a airport hangar lease. That's a long time, 25 years for depreciation of a building that you would build and then have it co-loan, where you'd have a smaller amount of time, like what you had mentioned earlier. I'll be voting against it. Oh, I want to vote for the 3-year, but not for 25 in the future. And so I just want to say that now because we're going to talk about this again in 3 years. And so I want it to be shorter in the future, voting for the 3 years, but against the 25 years and 3 years from now.
When that comes up.
When that comes up.
For the clarification.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Commissioner Gray has requested that we have a brief discussion about what's going on with the Northland Reliability Project. It's a PUC approval project. I believe he's been approached by some constituents with some concerns, and the desire was to get board direction to put a letter together to the PUC requesting that they put good faith efforts into working with the constituents regarding the issues that they've raised.
Yeah.
Do you want to add the details?
Yeah, some of this whole Northland reliability thing is a done deal. We really don't have a dog in the fight. They've got the route, they're gonna put the poles up, they're 175-foot monopoles, so the distances, they can be compensated one way or the other, and I just want them to work with the landowners that are there, the farmers that are there, been doing this for 30, 40 years with these pivots going around, that they make a good faith effort to work, because they can put them, now that they've got the route established, they can put them wherever they want. And I'm just hoping that they work with the 5 or 6 landowners through Haven and Palmer Township out there, that they do that. So that's what Bruce and I will draft up a letter, send it to the PUC, that then, we're on record saying that, yeah, let's make an effort to accommodate these guys. It's only 4 or 5 guys. They can make these poles work.
And with that, would you also want to send it to Northland
I would imagine that we will make an enclosure with them, yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty typical with PUC, even though it's highly, highly regulatory. If you really go into one of the permits, someplace in the permit, it's going to say, work on implementing whatever, including property owners. My experience, for example, was the PUC permitted a large solar installation in Chisago County, and one of the directions of the PUC was that the company work with each individual property owner on a view shed. So from a second floor house, what are they looking at? And that determined where the trees were placed. So the requirement in the permit was you're going to put trees. The location was determined by that direction. So I'm sure it's in the permit. We're just asking them to enforce it on Northland. And I'm guessing Northland will, and some of these are probably just communication issues. Commissioner Felber noted that, or not Felber, Commissioner Gray noted that the height restriction near the airport might be an FAA regulation, but it could be that the farmers are seeing that as Northland's issue. So just encouraging a conversation.
Right. Unlike solar, these landowners, they're getting this put on them. They're not voluntarily asking for it. It's just right there for them. They have to abide by it. But I just want them to make sure that they're noted in their thing. So.
Well, with that, I would approve then a letter to the Public Utilities Commissioner on behalf of District 4 farmers and relating to the Northland Reliability Project, and also send it to the Northland Reliability members as
We
well.
have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Schumacher seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Motion carries. Commissioner correspondence. Who's going first? Do I have to put a time limit on this? You can. I'm going to put one on Greg's.
Greg will last, but, all right.
All right. Who's going first? Commissioner Danielowski.
May 6th.
Your mic's not on.
Sorry. May 6th, attended the Employee Appreciation Ice Cream Social. Wanted to put out a big thank you to Johnny Pops for providing our refreshment that day. May 7th, I had the opportunity to go down with our Sherburne County Soil and Water District, along with a good number of our Lake Association members, and we toured the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center down at the U. That was really a cool thing, and there's a lot of studying and researching going on in regards to carp. They're looking at trying to make carp infertile. So it will then naturally, over time, they'll just kind of go away. And also a lot of algae research and different things like that. So it was an impressive tour, and it was good to see that there are some people with those kinds of minds that can think of those things to do to help us battle what it is in our aquatic and invasive species world. May 8th, I attended the First Steps by Zoom. I am an alternate for that, so I just kind of sat and listened. And then also later that day, I was able to attend the Mental Health Partners Open House, and that was at the Furniture and Things Event Center in Elk River. And that has grown. They have outgrown. They used to have it in a smaller room. Now they were in the, what do I want to say, that was the walking center area, huge and great response. I only see that as continuing to grow. We have a lot of great partners that are involved in the mental health needs of our community. So that was good to see. Then also the APO board met with, had a meeting with the APO board up in St. Cloud. At that meeting, we received the 2024 budget to actual report and also reviewed what the future arterial and collector street study found. As you know, in any area, as they continue to grow, the need to put in these arterial roadways and collector streets continues to grow if you're doing the proper planning for those future needs. May 9th, attended, or by Zoom, AMC Housing Subcommittee. May 14th, attended the Big Lake Township meeting. May 15th, we had our Sherburne County EDA meeting, and that is good to see how that is progressing. We have a lot of, we're getting ready to finalize a loan program in regards to people's housing needs, trying to fill a gap to help them get their housing projects done when they can't necessarily go to a bank for that need. And also then had another AMC Housing Committee meeting that afternoon. And May 19th, Options Board meeting. We held our annual meeting. We elected our officers. Elected, our chair is Ken Giroux, vice chair is Michelle Anderson, Bridget McLennan is our treasurer, and I serve as the secretary. Also want to make sure everybody puts on their calendar they're invited to the annual picnic at Options, which is June 13th. We also heard a presentation from the advisory committee, staff member Letitia Zachert and committee member who is a Options client, McKenna Martindale. They have a group that meets, there's 5 of them on this committee, and they just kind of are involved in what they want to see and help promote Options to be. So that was pretty cool to listen to them and hear what it is that they're looking to do. So I think that's pretty much it.
You next?
Sure. First of all, I wanted to welcome everybody back and just say, I hope you enjoyed your summer. It was fun while it lasted.
Perfect.
All right.
Are you done now?
No, I am not done. So a couple of things. One is I will do my editorial comment for today. And this is my personal opinion. I found it in extraordinarily bad taste and frankly buffoonery that our governor chose to equate our ICE officials to the Gestapo at the end of Law Enforcement Week. So we'll go on the record saying that I found that extraordinarily distasteful. Secondly, I want to remind folks that this is Memorial Day coming up. It's not Veterans Day. There's a distinct difference. Memorial Day is for those who didn't make it home. So please keep that in mind as you're enjoying your hot dogs and hamburgers, or in our case, snow cones, since it's probably going to be snowing, that weekend. The other thing for Bruce, on the workshop coming up, on the rolls, voter rolls, just want to make sure that includes not just the standard procedures for cleaning those up, but I'd like to get a status, on where it is with that cleanup. Then, as far as what I've done, So 2 weeks ago, we met and finalized with the Fair Board the lease that we approved today. I also met on that Friday with the county attorney. We discussed several issues with respect to the watershed district, and she's working with the other county attorneys to finalize some language for some of those, for some of that project. Went on the 13th to the open house for County Road 1. So we're looking at modifying County Road 1. That's why I was asking Andrew if the website's still open. So anyone that's interested can still go to the website on the county's page and provide public input there. And there was actually there was quite a bit of interest in modifications to County Road 1, just because some of the speeds, especially around Meadowvale Elementary School. So I'm looking forward to that project. 14th, met with ISD 728 for their community members meeting. It was a very good meeting. It was our first meeting with the new superintendent and with the new board chair. I thought that went quite well. They are also facing considerable budget pressures, so more to come on that. On the 15th was the EDA meeting, and we continue, I think, to make good progress with the economic development group and some of the projects that are getting launched through the county, both from a housing perspective as well as business development. And then also had finished up with our monthly meeting with Congressman Emmer's staff, going through current budget process and where we stand on the federal budgets, and that's about it for me.
Mr. Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Baldwin Blue Hill Fire District meeting where they renegotiated the contract for the fire, for their fire district they have amongst themselves. Very good dual meeting that they had. Attended a business meeting with Brian Fleming with a business that's in Sherburne County, 500 employer business within Sherburne County. I want to thank Brian Fleming for putting that together. He did a fantastic job in bringing the information from DEED and all of the things that our economic development department does for our businesses and helping to be a resource. We did, it was eyes wide open on the daycare, on the new daycare map and having that available. And of course, when you're in the Princeton side of Sherburne County, we have a lot of employees that are in Mille Lacs County, and I said that the information is not proprietary. We will definitely be able to share it, and whether they implement it on the north side of the community is up to them. Attended the Livonia Township meeting. We have a special meeting with Livonia Town Board on the 22nd, which we're going to discuss some further details on planning and zoning and solid waste. So that'll be with Dan Weber and myself, and then the staff for planning and zoning. Attended the ISD 728 board meeting as a public forum, which was kind of fun for me, just to go through the process and understand it a lot better from a constituent's perspective, not as a county board perspective. And then I brought the prop, which was here. Special thanks to Public Works, because there's a lot of construction going on in Zimmerman. And our Public Works Department with Dave Riddell, they're doing a fantastic job. It looks bad, but it's progress, and the progress actually is making big things happen. They had a 10-inch gas main spread across town. I mean, it didn't look like it was going to be able to work, but it all worked. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows Dave Riddell is doing a fantastic job for our Public Works Department and going through the construction in Zimmerman. And then on our Public Works meeting that we had, Dave Unzi ran the Public Works meeting for the construction. That's both with the school and the businesses. That happened before the IS 728 meeting. I set up camp within the school district building to take that meeting before I went into the other meeting. And then I did do the other IS 728 meeting with Commissioner Housley. Very good meeting, a lot of great partners, a lot of great information, especially, learning from the Rogers part of the school district and having them come and communicate some of the things that are happening in the Rogers part. And the thing that really impacted the most was that the school boards vision to make sure that a student that attends Rogers feels the same as if they feel and they do in Zimmerman. They get the same experience throughout the 3 different counties and 3 different communities. So it just was very, very good to hear that and to be able to partner up with them. And then I came down, I did watch the Waste, Fraud, and Hearing Committee. I want to just thank Representative Walter Hudson and Representative Isaac Schultz, who's the Mille Lacs County side up there. They did a very good job in asking questions. I do feel that our Attorney General did. He answered a lot of the questions that I didn't think he would. So I did feel that there's people watching it and eyes out there. The way that we keep this in front of us is by being diligent. So we stop the waste and fraud throughout the state. It makes it easier for us to absorb some of the costs. And so I felt like it was a very bipartisan questioning process, and the answers were there and they were valid. And then I also just want to make sure everybody knows, even if you have your snow cones, Sherburne County's #1 parade is Wild West Days, and it's on Saturday. It starts at noon, and probably see Don there, the county attorney, but want to make sure everyone's invited. I invited the school board, all their staff, all of our staff. It's a really great time, and our road construction will be pulled back so that the parade can happen just like normal. And so I want to thank everybody, especially Dave Unz, for explaining that in the meeting, and see the county attorney in Zimmerman. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, real quick, to Brad's point on waste and fraud, we always have to be on the alert.
Yeah.
Recognize something. If something doesn't look right, don't be afraid to bring it out and question it across all of our different committees and the agencies that we're working with, because we all have hearts. We all know that our hearts are always in the right place, and so sometimes you just have to bring your common sense to the table as well. So we're all a part of this process, so
yeah.
Thank you.
You're next.
All right. Well, I missed the rodeo.
Time's up.
I missed the rodeo. I missed the rodeo at Wild West Days. It's been a while since I had one. Anyhow, we all went to the employee ice cream deal. Also on 5/6, attended a Minnesota PUC discussion of the process and restrictions on boat wrap stewardship. The basic plan is that since boat wrapping has gotten to be a much bigger industry than it used to be, the wrap will have to come from in-state purveyors, will be set up for recycling. So make sure this stuff goes clear. That it has to come from someplace inside the state so we can control that it goes back clean and get recycled and reused. They're hoping the program will also encourage reusable boat wrap and boat covers instead of the disposable type. That's a pretty good idea. NACO Public Safety, there's a lot of discussion, but there wasn't a whole lot of facts. We don't really know, at least at the time of the meeting, everything in Washington was changing on a daily basis, so we really don't know what's going to happen with a lot of the funding for FEMA. FEMA's a big issue, because right now there's a proposition to pull FEMA out of the DHS and create a cabinet position for it. That would probably be a good thing, to have it sitting separate. We'll see how that works out. But following the Great Plains Institute, some hearings on what's going on with the particular PUC docket, considering alternate forms of energy, waste to energy type things. This particular one was on discussion of carbon capture and hydrogen. The main things when you think about carbon capture and hydrogen is that both carbon capture and the production of hydrogen require additional energy usage, right? And also, if we were going to capture carbon, we would probably have to put in long pipelines. It would be high pressure pipelines, like 12 to 1800 psi versus a 300 psi gas line. So there's a lot of things to think about. I mean, a lot of this stuff sounds great when you first hear about it, but there's also a lot of chemicals involved in these processes, and it's probably not as rosy as some people would make it out to be. But we're still working on that in terms of, a lot of that will factor into how the PUC evaluates these ideas of using refuse-derived fuels and biomass for our base power load. Obviously, I spent a lot of time on energy again. ETAC, Emergency Issues Group, once again, energy. A lot of concern about what the actual funding is going to be, and obviously we don't even know what the funding is going to be until the state and the feds finish that. Said on a critical materials task force webinar, talking about trying to recover critical materials. It's a 15-member board. They're going to be taking a broad approach at first to help recover critical materials. We have a lot of critical materials produced in the state. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that comes out of medical devices that could be recycled. So looking at trying to figure out how to recycle all of that and then come up with some, eventually, ultimately, some additional plan to recover those materials from the solar fields, because there's not really a great plan for that. So that's going to be an ongoing thing, try to monitor that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, then just some other stuff. Violent Offender Task Force is working on additional funding. I contacted our state legislatures about legislative asks. I did some additional prep for the comp plan workshop. I was over the Becker Township meeting discussing trails, which is part of the comp plan workshop. Spent a lot of time on County Road 75, meeting with constituents and trying to figure out what we can do down on County Road 75 for that landing to alleviate that, and trying to keep the township abreast of what we're doing. And then one thing I did want to mention is there's a lot of discussion on data centers at state and federal level, and I simply cannot see how we're going to have these data centers come in without coming up with some solid way at state level to increase our baseload electricity. We're simply not going to be able to run these things off of solar and wind. And then I also do echo what Commissioner Hull said about the governor's comments. Making those comments, particularly during a police Memorial Week, was extremely egregious. And that's all I've got, see?
Wow. Time's up. I'm last. Okay. I think most of the stuff's been hit. I also was at the Johnny Pop distribution with the staff. We talked about that. Soil and Water Conservation District, met with them. The First Steps Joint Power Board, Rand touched on that. I mean, their numbers keep going up, working with all the littles, the single mothers, the first-time mothers, existing mothers, the breastfeeding, all that kind of stuff. I think that program, that Joint Powers Board with the 4 counties is a model for the rest of the state, I think, because I think it's a huge benefit for us. I also did the mental health meet and greet at the community center. I had a meet and greet with the building and facility staff of us here just to get to know who they were, and the building we walk into every day and what they take care of. I hosted a town hall meeting at San Diego. Just a few people attended, which I kind of expected, but it was a good discussion in regards to everything that we talked about. The MICA thing, we've touched on all the legislative issues. It's just kind of a wait and see until the budget comes. I did the TRICAP annual meeting, which gave their yearly review. I think TRICAP's a very important thing. Andrew mentioned today, this morning, in regards to the veterans and what they do. My son rides a TRICAP bus. I think all that. I had lunch with the planning and zoning and public works departments. I think that was great. Just to meet and greet with them, to say hi and thank you. And I'll just say this, I think the 5 of us as commissioners, all of us have different strengths and ideas and avenues, and I think it's a privilege to work with all of you and do what we do. I think because we complement each other, we disagree, but I think in the end, we all come to an agreement on what's best for Sherburne County, and I think that's our end goal. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. And that's all I got. And then we'll move on to break.
Yes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, 11:30.
11:30.
Outstanding.
Does that clock need to be adjusted forward or back?
No, you stay away from the clock.
Okay, just checking. Check that other clock. See how
It needs
And opening the community health board and a cone. And a cone. Perfect.
When did you lose control of this meeting?
I have lost it since I walked in the door this morning. Yesterday. Yeah. Yesterday. It's been a long weekend.
I actually thought it would be a great one for
I need approval of regular meeting and proposed agenda for the community health board.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Halls,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Danielowski. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Same side. The agenda, consider approval of the official minutes from the March 18, 2025 meeting of the community health board. Need a motion to accept the minutes.
Motion. Second.
Commissioner Schumacher, second by Commissioner Halls. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Number 2, consider approval of a grant and agreement between the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, Farmers Market Nutrition Program, and Sherburne County.
Yes, correct. This would be our third year participating in this program. It's a voluntary program through WIC, so Women's, Infants, and Children, and it allows participants to have some coupons to buy fresh fruits and vegetables at our local farmers markets who decide to participate. So it's been a nice little addition for our participants. They like the socialness of getting out to the farmers markets as well as learning about what foods are grown locally. So it doesn't give us much for dollars. We get $1 for every coupon book that we give out with a max of $400, but we do think it's worth offering to our participants.
Okay.
Nothing like a good farmer's market.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a motion to approve the grant agreement.
I would make a motion to approve the grant agreement between the Minnesota Department of Agricultural Farmers Market Nutrition Program and Sherburne County.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Danielowski, second by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Number 3, consider approval of the 25 through 28 Central Minnesota Alliance Community Health Improvement Plan. Nicole?
Yeah, so Keisha, I'll just have you bring up the PowerPoint for that one. So it is that time of year again. In 2024, we started working on our community health needs assessment and community health improvement planning process. And just to kind of set the stage a little bit, a high overview of the process and framework that we used. We used this tool called MAP, Mobilizing for Action Through Planning and Partnerships. And that's a tool that's developed out of NACCHO, the National Association of City and County Health Officials. And that has really helped us really navigate what those assessments look like, questions to ask, how we engage with the community, what kind of data we try to collect. It is not a plan for us locally, internal in public health, but really is a community plan, and they describe it as a community strategic plan to improve health. And really we think about looking at the performance of the local public health system and as a whole, so not just us, but partners in healthcare and business sectors and decision makers, and then really come together to do an improvement plan that helps support our community's well-being. We did use this process in 2019 and 2021, and also parts of it prior assessments. So the tool's been around for a long time, but gone through a couple of revisions. So phase 1 of this tool asks us to really build our infrastructure, and since we have a pretty well established infrastructure, that's through the Central Minnesota Alliance, a partnership between Benton, Stearns, Sherburne, and Centricare, where we've agreed to do this work together because of our shared Central Minnesota and also the shared St. Cloud area, which many of our partners and resources really converge in that area. In this work, we have a variety of committees. We have a leadership committee, which is wider than the 3 counties, and we invite community members and partners to attend those. We have a process manager group who really kind of drives the work and makes sure that we're staying on task and that we're committed to all the deliverables that we need to do. And we also have a variety of other committees, like the Community Context and Partner Committee. And both of those really focus on qualitative data, so really talking about the stories and on environmental scans that we see, and then we also do some exercises around forces of change to really understand the narrative around our community's health. And then the other committee is the Community Status Committee, and that's really the numbers and percentages. They really look at data in that kind of perspective. And we do this work because we have to. There are a couple of legal requirements. So the health system is required to do this health needs assessment and improvement plan through the IRS, the Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act, and that is required every 3 years. And then our local public health system here in Minnesota, under statute 145A, requires us to do this process every 5 years. And so both assessments really line up well. We have committed to the 3-year cycle due to the impact of CentraCare in our area. They are a partner and have sites within all 3 counties. So we do this every 3 years. Phase 2 is about telling the community story. And so I talked a little bit about those 3 committees. We really solidified those 3 partner committee agencies. And then we did an assessment and compiled a summary report. We looked at all of the trends and themes across those 3 assessments, and we talked about what that looked like at what we called the data triangulation meeting, which isn't a very fun name, but we did have a lot of participants both in person and online who were able to talk about the themes and trends we found and then helped us do some prioritization exercises to come up with the top priorities. And what we've all been waiting for. So we identified 3 big top priorities and really grouped them because I think what we heard from the community was very wide and broad. So the last time we did this, we were in the middle of COVID. That looked very different when we had those community conversations. And this time we really saw a lot of those recovery type of things. So for the community connection priority, we heard a lot about mental health and social connection, feeling of belonging within our communities, and certainly substance use and abuse. For the community stability part, we heard, of course, housing, and I know you have all just talked a lot about different housing initiatives, financial insecurity, childcare issues, and food insecurity. And then for community access, kind of 2 prongs there, healthcare access, in which we heard, lots of advancements for telehealth, but also still a lot of gaps in what and how that's available. The rural challenges, so not only do we focus on that St. Cloud area, but we're also interested in what's going on in Zimmerman and Elk River and Santiago. Also insurance and what that looks like going forward. And then transportation has always, I think, risen to the top of community priorities and how that impacts health. So what does that look like for us? We went down a little deeper into what that looks like. So for the community connection, just overall mental well-being, we're going to try to do some mapping. We really like the work that economic development did in partnership for the childcare centers, and so we're looking at something similar for mental health. There are some really good examples already with the CAMI work and mapping, but this is hopefully going to be something similar with some interaction. And also we have some really strong partners with substance use prevention, but really kind of capitalizing on the 3 counties' ability to capture, joint work, shared resources, and partnerships, and then also some common metrics so we can really more effectively measure where we're making improvements. For community stability, we heard a lot of partners talk about family resource centers, so we were really pleased that we are one of the 3 counties who have already had a family resource center established, and we are on the coming weeks of having a second one in the St. Cloud area. And so that was something that our group really heard loud and clear, and they really had some thoughts about that being community-led versus county-led. So we'll look at ways to support that. And then we also heard about food access at family resource centers, and so wanted to make sure that we had some strategies around that. The second part for community stability is just, again, using data. I think that's been a space where we've been really trying to make some gains in the last few years, thinking about a regional dashboard, and then something that we're calling a data walk or an event where we can really bring in community to talk about what kind of data do we have, where are there gaps, and then, what does it mean? Because as you look at data, you can interpret it many ways. So hearing what the numbers say, but does that match what we're hearing in the stories? And then the last one, community access. So certainly for public health, we talk about promoting prevention a lot. So really working on producing some return on investment information. Why do we invest in prevention? What are the long-term outcomes we can expect? And then just really kind of continuing on the What Creates Health campaign. And then for the expanding mobile options, Project HEAL is something that's been active at CentraCare, and they have mobile healthcare going out to different community parts, and they have an interest in expanding that. So we will work with them to make sure that we're getting to our rural areas. And then also, most of us spend a lot of time with our employer, and we think we could do a better job thinking about employer-led health initiatives. We've done some work in the past through Try Wellness, which is kind of that worksite wellness that we support through the Statewide Health Improvement Partnership. But thinking about the model here and having a healthcare clinic on site, that was an area where we heard from the community might be a great place to do some strategies. We also did a quick scan of some of our neighboring projects and where their priorities are. So Wright County just released their 3 priorities for 2025. And there's our access to care, economic stability, and social connectedness. So really mirroring what we have heard. Fairview Northland, in which I sit on their advisory council, released theirs in 2024. And their 3 top priorities were accessing and navigating care and resources, addressing structural racism and barriers to equity, cultivating trust, belonging, and healing. And then this year, the Minnesota Department of Health, through what they call the Minnesota Partnership, also released theirs this year's, and theirs top 3 priorities are belonging, well-being, and substance use prevention, health and housing, and equitable access and care. So really feeling that what we found in our community mirrored a lot of what our neighbors have found, and then even throughout the state. Some long-term impacts, really looking long-term to see our life expectancy increase. We saw some dips during COVID, and so really hoping to see that improve. In particular, we see some differences throughout our different zip codes and census tracts. So keeping track of that and really making sure we're targeting our work. And then just some other impacts that we'd like to see is stronger support networks, increased life satisfaction and quality of life, seeing expanded economic opportunities, increased participation in community and civic life, and then increased use of prevention services and early diagnosis and treatment. The representatives from our partners are listed here. So I do know that Benton County talked about this last week at their board, and they did approve it. CentraCare is about halfway through their various boards. I think they have 10 boards where they get approval for this plan, and they have about 50% to go. Stearns County is taking theirs in June. So we're kind of midway through this process for all 4 partner agencies. Questions from the group, from the board?
Bruce has one.
Do you mind if I want to?
You can jump in.
So Nicole, my first introduction to this was during that process three plus years ago. And I think, if I remember right, there was a virtual meeting.
There was.
It was virtual, and I think, Greg, you were on that too. And we came away feeling that it was really, for lack of a better phrase, DEI heavy at the time.
Correct.
This seems much more in alignment with what I'll call the long-term public health initiatives. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, I'm feeling like this is bread and butter, so.
I would agree. I think during the time of the COVID assessment, so back in 2021, health disparities and inequities were really brought to light with some of our communities experiencing more impacts by COVID, and I think that really contributed to the Community Health Improvement Plan at that time, where we've really seen us move, more towards a recovery mode, and I think, what we found were those top 3 kind of bucketed areas.
So where it still exists when you talk about, access, we're talking health access, we're talking health services, we're not broadening into economic equity, political equity, nothing like that. This is really still focused on
Correct.
the health side.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments?
Need a motion to accept the Central Minnesota Alliance Community Health Improvement Plan.
I'll make that motion. I don't have the motion in front of me, but you said it well.
Thank you. Motion on the floor by Commissioner Danielowski. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll receive the Community Health Services Administrator's bi-monthly update.
So I have just a couple of quick items, and then you can be on to your next session. Just to know that we are starting with WIC services not next Monday, the first Wednesday in June, June 4th at the 1010 building, and we will be providing those services there every Wednesday moving forward. We also have plans to offer immunizations there and also some pop-up activities for some of our families that are involved in home visiting or other programming. So really trying to make use of that building and that relationship there with the community.
Can you send me the schedule on that?
We sure can. I think we're in the process of developing that. Jody, our planner from Health and Human Services, is sitting in on coordinator interviews this week. So hopefully they'll have a coordinator on board in the next month or so.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
I just also wanted to say that our Public Health AmeriCorps is coming to an end. That is no longer funded going forward, so we have 2 members who will be ending their term here this year. But we had really a great experience. This was the 3rd year that we participated in that, and they really added a lot of capacity to the Public Health Division. But we are going to explore some doing more internships more regularly. And I think prior to AmeriCorps, that was kind of how we did that work. So just to be aware of that. And then just one follow-up question. I'm not sure if any of the board members were able to participate in the SHAC member orientation back in April, but just wondering if you did, if you had any feedback or comments that you wanted to make.
I don't think I have any comments. I can't remember.
It was April 2nd, so it was a while ago.
Probably did.
Okay.
That time.
If you have any feedback or remember anything, you can certainly
I'll
reach
pop
out
you an email.
for that.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I did have one question. Nicole, you said you were going to be starting some opportunities up at the 1010 building. Are those some of the same things you're looking to bring to possibly the Elk River site and also the Big Lake site?
Yes, so for Elk River, less of a geographical kind of issue, so they have pretty good access here at the Government Center, but they're starting a lactation connection there, so some breastfeeding support at the Main Street one next month. So kind of letting the Family Resource Center direct what they need from us, and they thought that was a good place to start for Main Street. And then for Big Lake, yeah, we're anxious to see what that community feels like is the most important, and then how we can help support that.
All right, thank you.
Anything else for Nicole?
Right. Thank you.
Done. Thank you. Thank you. I will adjourn the Community Health Board meeting. And with that, we'll move on to our workshop, Building Facilities Assessment Report Review.